I know, I know. After not posting for a few weeks and just finishing a break, I do this. But just hear me out. It's been fun all these years. 4 years. That's how long I had been podcasting for. For those who had just decided to join, welcome. My name is Porscha and Aubrey. I am a published author, chef, athlete, and now used to be a podcaster. I started this podcast on August 8th, 2020, back when I was in 10th grade. It has now been over a year since I graduated. I had decided to start this podcast for many reasons. To promote my novels, to gain new skills, to try something new, to gain a community of like-minded people, and so much more. Throughout the years, my podcast has grown with me. I'd used it for assignments in school, which helped get even better grades due to the real-world reach I had. I learned new writing techniques and met new people. Hell, we even came up with our own tradition with the annual Week of Creativity. But alas, as I'm sure you all have noticed over time, I've lost my interest in podcasting. My community isn't really growing anymore, or even a community in general. My episodes aren't getting the traction they once used to, and I find myself dreading the end of every week because of the knowledge that I'll have to rush through another episode that I don't have the interest in making. I had a few different plans for the podcast that didn't involve leaving it entirely. One of which was to just change the niche for it, to make it things that I want to post so that I'm no longer trapped in this little box of creative writing. But then I'd imagine the drastic change and then having to maintain new episode ideas. It just sounds exhausting. Even more so than the small niche that I'm currently working with. Another idea I had was to instead turn it into more of a company. Hire a scriptwriter, a host, producer, marketer, editor, all that stuff. But seeing how the podcast industry is doing, I doubt it would go very well. Which is something I hated whenever I did my research. Every source I see says that podcasting popularity is continuing to be on the rise, yet over the years I've only seen a drop in my analytics. In fact, some of the sources that prove my suspicions to be true instead twist the words in order to make things confusing. One source I saw said that there were more podcasts and podcast episodes popping up daily, then goes on to say how popular podcasts still are. That's the thing. There are podcasts and podcast episodes popping up, but the listenership isn't. The pool's oversaturated, and at this rate, if you're not one of the top 5, then you're lucky to even make a living off of podcasting, let alone $1. Granted, my podcast is pretty damn niche, so it's understandable for there to be less listeners available for me and those like me. But in the end, I have to look through all the work I do in my day-to-day life and finally come to the decision. Continue pushing through and hoping for the best, or leave. And personally, I'd say it's finally time for me to leave. Perhaps in the future I'll be able to turn the podcast into more of a company, but as of right now, that's just not a feasible option. Now, before I get into the technicalities and plans for my departure, let's just get into some lessons I learned and recommendations I have for those listening. Do I regret starting a podcast? Absolutely not. It was a lot of fun and I enjoyed the routine of it all back when I was in school, since I'd be able to work on scripts and edit in between assignments, so it fit nicely. Would I suggest others to start a podcast? For fun and skills? Absolutely. For the prospect of making money and becoming famous? Definitely not. And for those who are in school, I'd actually highly recommend starting a podcast. I had used my podcast in a few different assignments growing up, and it had actually helped me get higher grades. In fact, episodes 30, 31, 68, 69, 76, 89, 102, 108, and 116 were either direct school assignments or were products of an assignment. And guess what? Each of those episodes got me an A or higher due to the real-world reach of it all. So, would I suggest starting a podcast when you're in school to help you with assignments? Absolutely. And you'll likely see a jump in your GPA as well if you do so. What was it like managing school, podcasting, and work? Shockingly, it was actually less tiring managing all of that and school compared to now with it just being work in the podcast. Because at least with school, I'm able to work on scripts and marketing and all that stuff, and I don't feel like working on an assignment. But now that I'm out of school, I don't want to market and research and write scripts and edit and speak to people in my free time. Granted, I love doing that stuff. I love researching, I love writing, I love editing, I love all that sort of stuff. But not for a podcast that I'm bored of. So, no. I want to write my novels and doom scroll social media and come up with new recipes and spend time with my boyfriend and train for my races in my free time outside of work. Not research and speak to people in my free time. Why did you choose to stick around for so long? I understand that I took many breaks over the 4 years that I had spent podcasting, and yes, after like 1 year I wanted to leave, but instead I chose to stick it out, try new things to make it interesting again, or do analytic research to see if there's a possibility of more growth. And to be honest, I stuck around for so long because I was scared to leave. This is something that I had been doing for years. It was a big part of my sense of achievement. Hell, I even used some episodes to track my achievements. And of course, there are other reasons, like me enjoying the routine when it comes to podcasting, or the prospect of being able to teach people new things, or the knowledge that someone will listen to my story episodes and may like my writing and want to stick around, or even the thought that I may have found people interested in what I was posting and was genuinely learning from me. But in the end, the biggest reason I chose to stay was because I was scared. It's kind of like leaving a job you weren't such a big fan of, but you got along amazingly with the people there. Or like leaving your childhood hometown and all your friends behind. I chose to stay and continue pushing myself to make episodes even when I despised the thought of it, because I was scared to let go of this part of myself. I'm sure if you listened through my podcast, you'd be able to see and track all of my unkept promises. Like writing a story from a prompt and comparing it to one written by AI with the same prompt. Or not taking that long of breaks, or bringing more guests onto the podcast, or making longer episodes, making more in-depth episodes, making mental health episodes after I got my diagnosis, BPD by the way, all of that. All of those promises were broken because I was no longer interested in podcasting, but was still pushing myself. And sure, my audience isn't that large, so who really cares? But I do. I don't care if I have half a listener or 1 million listeners. I broke a promise of certain episodes I'd make, and every day those broken promises weighed on my conscience. Sure, to most people it may not be that big of a deal, but for me, it felt like I was failing each and every week, and it would make me dread podcasting more and more. If you dreaded podcasting, then why do you recommend it? Because it's an amazing learning opportunity for everyone. Now, do I recommend it in the long term? Absolutely not. But if you're in school where you get media assignments and such, then I absolutely recommend it. For the short term of being in school, it's fine. But for several years, no. In fact, when I first started, I noticed that the creative writing podcasts I listened to were slowly leaving. And younger teenage me figured, I'll never leave. I love this. It's so much fun. I'll be doing this for years. Even after I have kids, I'll be podcasting. Yeah, no. I will absolutely not be doing that. Granted, I'm pretty sure I lasted longer than the podcasters I listened to, but in the end, yeah, no. I'm not sticking around. And don't get me wrong, I love writing, I love editing and researching, I love all that stuff. Just not as a daily/weekly thing, and not for a podcast. Now, something that I'm sure you all are wondering about. What now? Well, this is most likely going to be my last free episode. As of writing this, I have 2 more premium episodes recorded and scheduled for the 4th and 11th of September. Now, the premium episodes are where things are a bit foggy. Because on one hand, I don't want to work on the podcast anymore, but on the other hand, I actually pretty enjoy making premium episodes from time to time, though even now I'm starting to dread it. It doesn't feel right to just stop recording the premium episodes in the middle of a novel, but at the same time, I have no premium listeners. And I'd like to go through and record all my novels, so then if people want to listen to them, then it's just $1.99 a month until they finish. But then that wouldn't actually be leaving the podcast, because I'll continue to have books coming out, meaning I'll continue having to record more chapters. So something I'm thinking about doing is just finish reading Arctic Blaze and then that's it. No more premium episodes. But at the same time, I would like to record Shredded Personas, but if I start Shredded Personas, then I have to go through and record all 8 books, because it doesn't sound right to stop at the end of the first book. I was also contemplating just making all the premium episodes free, but then that would have been time that I spent being completely unfunded, and isn't fair to the people who had subscribed for a period of time. So I'm planning on keeping them premium for now. As for the episodes recording themselves, we'll just have to wait and see, but as of right now, I'm leaning more towards just stopping once I finish Arctic Blaze. And if people would like to read either the Death Chill series or the Shredded Persona series, then there will always be a link available where they can purchase a copy of the novels. And well, yeah, that's pretty much it. I want to give a special thanks to all the listeners who had joined me throughout the years, and would like to say that it was nice meeting the few guests I had present on my podcast. I hope you all are doing well. There's no need for an outro promoting anything. You all already know what's in the description. Novels, my Instagram, a Discord server I haven't looked at in years, typical stuff. And well, it was nice knowing you all. Thank you. Thank you for making the last 4 years of my life educational and fun. Thank you to those who had participated in my Q&As. Thank you to those who rated 5 stars. Thank you to those who listened and subscribed even when I was on break. Thank you all. And I'm sorry for not being the best host, but you all are sure the best listeners. My name is Porscha and Aubrey. You're listening to Creative Writing Club, and this is goodbye. It was nice meeting you all. Thank you for listening.